What is going on, my good friends? You got Matty Brolick here once again, the good commissioner, the good one of the bunch, the golden boy of the draft format. I'm taking Carson's title, and unfortunately, the aforementioned is not alongside me today. He still hasn't actually played his game yet. I'm still waiting on. I was trying to wait for him to play his game versus Evan before I recorded this video, just in case it ended up being a really good game that I felt was worth covering for the week 3 highlights. But I don't think Evan has gotten back to him yet, and he's not online at the moment. So I figured, all right, I know he said he has something to do later, so I'll just record this on my own. And we do have 3 quite solid games here to show you. I definitely would say so far this week it was Sword and Shield, and it's the newest metagame. Most leagues aren't even using this metagame, tours as well, because everyone wants to use national decks with megas and stuff, and I get that. There's more options. People like having more options, especially megas are a pretty big attraction to competitive Pokemon, so I don't really blame people for being disappointed that other Sword and Shield metagames don't have megas because they're not technically in the game yet. But I have a sneaking suspicion that they're going to return with the the Crown Tundra rather, because based on the list of leaked Pokemon, it seems like there are going to be all of the Mega Pokemon in the game by that point, even though there's not going to be all of the Pokemon in the game. So I feel like that's for a reason. But and random tangent aside, I just wanted to let you guys know that Carson wasn't going to be here this week, but hopefully he'll be here next week, and hopefully he gets his game done on time tonight. But yeah, as I was mentioning before, the Sword and Shield meta right now is the most brand new meta there is out there, pretty much, because we got a few new Pokemon added, like brand new Pokemon added, as well as just adding back a bunch of old Pokemon, and some of them have lost some moves, some of them have gained some moves. So it was kind of hard to accurately price and tier, I guess, like all of these new Pokemon. It's kind of just some trial and error. Just like when Sword and Shield first started, you had some pretty crazy prices for a lot of different Pokemon that are probably changed at this point in time for most people's prices and tier lists. But I think we did as good of a job as we could, just trying to make sure, like, taking into account all the new tutor moves and all of the new TRs, as well as deleted moves, to try to tier things as best as we could. But because the metagame is so new and fresh, I mean, Sword and Shield in general is pretty fresh, regardless of how many times you've played in the league in it so far or played in tournaments so far. It is still going to be pretty new compared to Sun and Moon, especially because I think most people have their majority of experience in Sun and Moon. So I would say this week, by a pretty decent margin, was the least competitive, in the sense that a lot of the games were won pretty handily by one person, where, yeah, there were some cool things here and there to probably show off that I considered putting in this video. I just figured, you know what, I'm just going to look for the ones that were the closest. And even so, I would say probably 2 out of the 3 here are like really solid games, and then the other one isn't even that great in terms of that like close competitiveness. But regardless, I did my best. If Carson and Evan turns out to be this like banger of a game, then maybe I will upload that separately. But for now, I picked the 3 games, and as you can see right in front of you, we're starting out with a banger. It is II from Trick of Eye versus Hiker Toad, and with those guys going at it, it's probably going to be a pretty exciting game, one to remember. And they are squaring off in this brand new Sword and Shield tier, so I'm sure these guys have played a bunch of times before in the past. I don't know if they've played in RS, but I'm sure they probably squared off a lot in Sun and Moon, so it's cool to see them get a chance to play each other in a new tier. And Hiker really went off in this draft. I know Carson ranked him as number 1 in the Y Conference post-draft power rankings, and I think that's pretty well deserved. And at one point when we were drafting a Sword and Shield, I was just like, is anyone going to stop this guy? Because he was just getting like monster after monster. I mean, Dragapult, a lot of people are saying, is borderline broken. I haven't used it myself, or I don't even know if I've faced it yet, to be honest. So I couldn't really tell you. I've used it in some mocks here and there, and it does seem to be really good. But because I haven't really used it on my own team in my own way, I couldn't really tell you if I feel maybe it's actually borderline. But I could see the arguments behind it, and yeah, we'll see how it does this season to know if maybe we actually think it could be busted or not. So that on top of Excadrill, I know some people are kind of mixed on Excadrill in general over the generations. I think in Gen 7, without Z moves, it gets a lot of flack, but I think, like, without a doubt, in Gen 8, it's an amazing Pokemon because just being able to get the spin boost, the speed boost from Rapid Spin, rather, is huge. Excadrill is a monster. It is just a well-rounded Pokemon in general, and that spin buff is amazing for it. I don't even think it got particularly huge move pool buff, but I think it just generally works a lot better than it used to. And as you can see, it's not like Hiker didn't draft Sand because he does have a Gigalith on his team. He's got Slowking, which is just so good now. Teleport is something that I think is potentially busted just as a move alone. Like, it's so, especially on Pokemon like Slowbro and Slowking, because Teleport plus Regenerator is so brainless. Like, you just click it, get perfect momentum because it's got the priority to go last, and you just gain back some HP, getting whatever you want in safely because it has negative priority. So crazy move. Mienshao as well, another Regenerator Pokemon, very, very solid Pokemon that also gets close combat this gen. Might get some other things too that I'm not mentioning, but close combat is a big one because it always has to rely on a high jump kick, which could be hard checked by ghosts as well as just missing. So that's definitely a nice buff for it. And then Rotom Heat is pretty much the best Rotom this generation. I think that's pretty widely accepted. Maybe in draft format, some people will disagree and prefer other ones, but I know in OU right now, Rotom Heat has been running rampant for a while, and it's just considered by far and away the best Rotom form. So that's just a glimpse of Hiker's team. I'm pretty sure the rest of his team is pretty solid too. But I is rocking just a pretty I-like team. He even said it himself, like he just loves using weird teams because they just suit him best, and he feels he just works the best with them. As you can see, he's got some kind of like niche picks here, like Drifblim. I mean, the rest of his team is pretty powerful. I think Hitmonlee is a really solid Pokemon. Losing, I guess, Pursuit support could be a little annoying for it because it's one of those fighting types that does struggle to break past Psychic types. But Hitmonlee getting the spin buff as well is really cool because, for example, a Reckless set, like a Reckless Life Orb set, is a lot more powerful now because you could potentially get a spin off and get a speed boost, now allowing you to just fire off insanely powerful Reckless high jump kicks, or just Life Orb attacks in general at +1 speed, being able to outspeed most of the meta with his pretty solid speed stat. So that's really cool. Hitmonlee is a solid Pokemon, but then, like I said, he's got the Drifblim. I can't remember what the rest of his team was, but knowing eyes, probably a couple niche picks on there. But then also like Toxapex, just the way it kind of fits this like really, really offensive looking squad is kind of interesting as well. I know he likes Toxapex. So anyway, we will get into this match as it turned out to be a really exciting one. So, oh my god, I keep doing that. See, Toxapex is disgusting. Even that cry is just gross. So now we'll get right into it. As a Hiker is just going to U-turn out on the Toxapex, bringing in his Slowking, as is trying to spread some poisons pretty early on, which, as you're going to see, is like a pretty solid strat against Hiker because he doesn't really have the most reliable recovery. He doesn't have any kind of Cleric support, at least on the Pokemon that he's brought here. He actually tricks the Rotom Heat coming in here. I'm not sure if that's like what he was intending or if he was hoping to get the Gigalith or even have the Slowking stay in, but I doubt he expected the Slowking to stay in because it's poisoned against the Ghost type, and obviously there's a chance that this Drifblim could be holding or carrying the Hex move. So he picks up the Boots, which actually is pretty nice for it, and pivots in Hitmonlee here, which gets burned, but as you're going to see soon, I is actually packing the Facade, so that's pretty solid. As it does a decent chunk to the Slowking, but I'm imagining that either the Slowking has a good amount of Fizz Def or the Hitmonlee has a lot of bulk investment without much attack investment, or both could be a combination, because it's not like a hit like a non-boosted Hitmonlee Facade is going to be that strong, but 34 was kind of low. It's like 140 base power, so with Slowking being a lot frailer on the physical side than it is the special side, I thought it might do a little more, but yeah, it could just be a lack of attack investment or like a ton of defensive investments. So here, Hiker's going to burn this Rotom, but trade it for getting Toxic, as I is, like I said, spreading those Toxics, really doing what he can to wear down the like fatter Mons on Hiker's team. As here, he's going to U-turn out with a Cinderace, with the Libero there, just shows how hard that thing could hit with a stab on things like U-turn. Bring in the Gigalith on the Toxapex, He's actually going to pivot back into the Slow King, I guess not wanting to take a Toxic, as now I'll speed it up a little bit. I'll just put it on fast. Teleports back into the Gigalith here, as he's going to take a Toxic, but he's going to elect Earthquake, and that pops a Sugar Berry, which looks really, really good for Hiker's Excadrill. I mean, Excadrill right now looks insane because in the sand just outspeeds everything on I's team. If he does have Fake Out Normal Gem on the Hitmonlee, then I could potentially outspeed Excadrill in the sand if it's like a Jolly Hitmonlee Adamant Drill sort of thing, but either way the Hitmonlee is burned, so probably couldn't even OHKO the Excadrill. So here Hiker is going to U-turn out on the Weavile, and the Weavile reveals to be Heavy Duty Boots, as well as the Cinderace, which you probably saw before. As here, the Cinderace is going to go for the Iron Head on the Dragapult, and now Hiker makes a good play Will-O-Wisping the Cinderace because it became a Steel type due to the Libero ability now becoming burned, and it is a physical attacker here, so that really does weaken it. But I does retaliate back with a pretty good play, using Court Change, taking the Reflect, and putting rocks on Hiker's side instead of his own, which those rocks were definitely starting to chip away at his team a little bit. I know he's got the boots, but things like Toxapex really don't appreciate it. Same thing with a potential Mamoswine. And the Hitmonlee is already taking burn chip, so any extra damage on there is going to really whittle it down. So that was nice for but Hiker's just going to go for another Reflect right here, as here comes the Toxapex. Hiker U-turns out into the Gigalith to get that sand up, as I think he Earthquakes here, if I remember correctly. Actually, no, he does pivot right into the Slow King, as I goes into the Mamo, is going to switch out, not wanting to take a Scald, knowing that the Slow King could easily take a hit behind the Reflect, as here comes the Dragapult, and it's just going to go right for the Hex. Doesn't do much to the Weavile, but now he's going to pivot out because he's in Ice Shard range, and I was actually surprised with this. I was surprised that Hiker went to Excadrill here, because look at Excadrill in this matchup. It looks like it just kills everything. I mean, if the Mamoswine isn't Choice Scarf, then there's a good chance Excadrill could outspeed it. I don't really know what kind of spread he's running. Maybe it's like a slow one, because with Sand Rush it outspeeds everything anyway. But yeah, with the Sand Up, it is beating Cinderace, it's beating Toxapex, like just destroying Toxapex. We already know that the Weavile's Heavy Duty Boots, so he outspeeds that. Like I said, the Hitmonlee's burned, so it most likely outspeeds and kills that. Even if he's got Mach Punch, it's not going to do much. So yeah, like Drifblim might be able to take a hit, but even so, it's surprising to me that he would risk letting Excadrill take damage, because now he's taken one Ice Shard. This Weavile obviously could potentially Ice Shard this Excadrill again, and then he's got priority options in the back, like Mamoswine and even potentially Hitmonlee. So I thought that was kind of weird, as he was just going to Ice Shard again. The Rapid Spin plus the Sand does end up getting the kill, so he gets the +1 speed, and here he's going to pivot out and go into the Rotom, as the Mamoswine does reveal to be Life Orb, meaning that he will be able to take out the Excadrill from there. So that's why I just thought it was really surprising that he would risk the Exca like that, because it just seems like such an amazing win con right now. I think the Gigalith is Smooth Rock as well, so he has so many Sand turns to use. But here he's going to go for the Hex and just show how good Dragapult could be, because this Dragapult's out here setting up Reflects, it's spreading burns, and it's just clicking Hex and doing crazy damage. So he switches into Slow King here, taking a knockoff, revealing that he's Cobra Berry, and now he's going to pivot out into the Rotom on the Earthquake. Good prediction there by Hiker, as that puts him in a pretty good spot, and then he's just going right for the Volt Switch, not worrying about the Mamoswine potentially staying in and going for a knockoff or like a Stone Edge. But here he goes for the Iron Head on the Gigalith and gets a crit flinch, so that definitely does suck for Hiker there, because I'm sure he would have been able to potentially knock out the Cinderace or just get up his Stealth Rocks, which is going to help with the Mamoswine and the Toxapex at the very least. But unfortunately for him, he gets both crit and flinch, meaning that he goes down this turn, also meaning that the Cinderace doesn't have to take another round of burn damage. So here comes the Excadrill, who's just going to click Iron Head, knock him right out. And here he stays in here too. Maybe he just felt that he was comfortable at this point in winning with with what he had left. But because the Drifblim lost its Choice Scarf, I figured that the Exca would probably outspeed it. I don't know if he's got SD to be able to 1v1. Maybe he doesn't. So maybe that's why he thought that he could get rid of this, because it's walled by Drifblim. I don't know. Maybe that's why. But I thought because it could potentially beat Drifblim, especially if it's SD, and it definitely beats the Toxapex, I was kind of surprised that he would sack that here. But yeah, I don't think he played that Excadrill the best. But here he brings in the Mienshao and just U-turns out, and brings in the Dragapult, as now something is either going to die or just take crazy damage, and it does just knock out the Pex from 54, which is pretty crazy. I'm guessing, like, I'm pretty sure he was like Clay, but I didn't really count the amount of screen turns, so maybe he wasn't. There's a chance that maybe he was like a Spell Tag or Spooky Plate, because those hexes were just doing so much. Like, that's the thing, Dragapult's special attack isn't that high. It's base 100, but because of its crazy speed, a lot of times it has the ability to go modest, just to give it an extra boost. And it's got high base power moves, so things like Draco Meteor, things like Hex when things are status, they hit really hard. So the fact that he's been able to spread a decent amount of status is making these hexes do just a ton of damage. Now here comes the Mamoswine in on the Slowking, and he's just going to be able to knock it out with the knockoff. That was a pretty safe play there. As here, with the Mienshao, he goes right for the U-turn again, bringing in the Rotom. And now he actually clicks Volt Switch on the Mamoswine, which I was kind of surprised. I felt like he didn't really lose much by clicking Overheat, but maybe he doesn't have it. I don't know for sure. As here, he wants to save his Rotom, and he goes hard into Mienshao. I don't really understand this either, but maybe he feels that like Dragapult deals with the Drifblim better, because we've seen that he's got the Strength Sap, so maybe with Strength Sap, Drifblim could potentially 1v1 things like Mienshao as well as Excadrill. Maybe that's why he's like just trying to save his special attackers and just sacking off his physical attackers like this. I'm not exactly sure, but if he did have Overheat, I don't think Volt Switching was the play there with the Rotoms. So here he brings in the Dragapult, is able to get just enough damage on the Drifblim to be able to take it out with only 2% left, which, you know, just incredibly close game. As this Rotom was actually tricked the Choice Scarf, but it was knocked off by the Mamoswine. But still, that's why I was kind of surprised they didn't Overheat there. I guess because he didn't want to get locked into the Overheat versus the Drifblim, but I'm not really exactly sure what he was worried about. I felt like just going Mienshao next play would have been fine, because he could have just like knocked it off and either just like let the Mienshao die to the Drifblim, because the Drifblim wasn't going to be able to set up. It was a Scarf trick set, so his last move turned out to be Hex, or second to last move turned out to be Hex. I don't know what he was so afraid of it. Maybe he had his reasons, but regardless, that ended up in a really, really close game, and it was extremely tense to watch. I was enjoying it. It was right before I left my house, and I was like, I gotta wait till this game ends before I leave, because this one's pretty exciting. So really good game between the two. I was coming in at 2-0, and Hiker was coming in at 1-1, so they both move on to 2-1. And yeah, I enjoyed that match. It would be cool to see them play again, potentially in another tier. And with that, we will move on to the second highlight game of Week 3, which is going to be Big Dick Nick versus K-Crick. They both go by different names on their Showdown alts, but Unload to Reload is Nick, and Shadow Blast is K-Crick. Now, K-Crick is the only one so far who just has not been featured in any of these videos. I know it's only Week 3, so it's not like it's been that long, but his Week 1 game he didn't play until after I recorded most of the videos, and it was a pretty good game versus Carson. Like, I felt like it almost could have gone either way at certain points, but it ended up like there was a little bit of hacks here and there, and I guess I just didn't think it was that good of a game to upload it as a standalone upload. So I let that one go, and then his Week 2 he just 6-0'd, so he is coming into this week at 2-0, where Nick is coming in at 0-2. So I know Nick is really hungry to win this game. He's I think played K-Crick before in like tryouts for DPL, so he's had I guess some experience playing against him. And K-Crick has this kind of interesting looking Sword and Shield team. I ranked him number 1 in the power rankings because his Aurax and Sun and Moon just are pretty insane teams. But his Sword and Shield, while pretty solid, I just didn't think stood up to some of the other teams, as well as obviously his Aurax and Sun and Moon, but that's to go without saying pretty much. But then I realized how good Sun Venusaur offense looks in this current tier. It just really looks like it puts a lot of pressure on a lot of the metagame. Having that nice Weather Ball is also really cool. So that, with like Kyurem getting extremely buffed this gen, Mana Buzz as well, it's a very solid team. I probably undersold it to some extent, but either way, I was curious to see him use it because like his other teams are just so powerful, and this one doesn't look to be like as broken, where it's just going to be like every matchup he's probably going to have the matchup advantage. So should be interesting. Nick's team is definitely kind of interesting as well. He's got some things that I really like Obstagoon. He's also got the Dragapult 2 and Rapidash, which I know he likes using and is probably the best it's ever been in this gen because of the heavy duty boots. So should be an interesting one as we will get right into this battle. Nick leads with the Obstagoon, and I think he makes a misplay turn 1. He just goes right for the knockoff on the Kyurem, as these two have the same speed stat. Like, I don't know if the Obstagoon was Scarf or what it was that he was confident in staying in and getting off the hip. But either way, like, it's not like Focus Blast like is an unreasonable move for a Kyurem to have, especially against the Piloswine team, because I'm sure that especially defensive invested Piloswine could take Flash Cannons pretty easily. So that was kind of a strange play in my opinion. I don't know if he just kind of forgot about the Focus Blast and didn't see it coming, or if he just thought it was worth the risk, because Obstagoon looked pretty crazy against his team. Like, if he's the Flame Orb set, then this thing just goes insane pretty much. But he loses his Obstagoon turn 1, which definitely looks pretty costly to me, just kind of by the team preview, as he doesn't really have switch-ins. Like, Mandibuzz could kind of take some hits, but if he's got like Bulk Up or a Taunt on the Obstagoon, then it just pretty much shuts down Mandibuzz and really puts in work against the rest of his team. So he drops the Kyurem turn 1, but he knocks off the heavy duty boots, so that does make somewhat of a difference, because Kyurem does appreciate that extra bulk and the extra HP that it gets to keep. And now he brings in a Scizor here as he's getting a U-turn, and he does a decent little amount of chip to the Torkoal, considering how bulky Torkoal is, and that's a resisted hit. But I think that damage does reveal to be Choice Band, which will come into play in a little bit. As here, he brings in the Piloswine as he just goes for an Earthquake. That does a pretty decent chunk, so maybe he's got some investment. As here he goes into the Rapidash. I don't know if he was expecting the Weather Ball or not, but either way, that was a good play, as Rapidash should be able to take most hits from a Kyurem other than an Earth Power, and Earth Power just didn't seem like the most likely play. He would have to really want to take that risk and predict the Rapidash coming in. So good pivot, as he's just going to Flare Blitz here on the Kyurem and knock it out. So Rapidash picking up a kill, and now he stays in versus the Venusaur, just taking the Earth Power and going down, as this Venusaur looks insane against him right now. Weather Ball obviously could blow away Scizor, and his Dual Stab just destroys Celebi and Piloswine, and then he also revealed to have the Earth Power, which could probably do a ton of damage to a Dragapult. So here, I think Nick makes another pretty big misplay. He had already revealed to be Choice Banded damage. Now, maybe he didn't expect K-Krick to realize that, but I guess just, with that information potentially being out there, he should have either gone into something else here versus his Venusaur, or just straight up gone for a Bullet Punch, because a Choice Banded Bullet Punch to a Life Orb Venusaur is really going to help whittle it down. I would imagine it does over 60% to this thing, and then with some Life Orb chip, this thing will have very few hits left, and it's clearly a massive threat to his team. So I think that if he was going to bring in the Scizor, he should have gone for the Bullet Punch, but he just stays in, I guess, hoping to U-turn and just gets Weather Balled, and things are not looking too good for him right now. So let's see if Broken Dragapult can help him get back into this game. As here he brings in the Pult, and he goes right for the Dragon Dance, just realizing like this Venusaur is a threat. I probably can't mess around with it too much, as the Dragon Dance does very little to the Mandibuzz as that U-turns out. And he brings in the Jirachi, and now one thing that's actually pretty cool is apparently he was Protective Pads on this Jirachi, which I don't know what his exact reason for bringing that was. I think something had to do with maybe Flame Body on something like Rapidash, but I don't know if that was his main reason for bringing it. But this turns out to be a Rocky Helmet Celebi, so that works out really well here, as he's just going for Iron Head, and he's not getting the most flinches here. He's able to Synthesis, and I don't know if Synthesis was the best call here. Maybe he brought it just because of Sun Recovery, but just the half HP that you get, or the half PP that you get compared to Recover, just doesn't really seem that worth it to me. I don't know. As here he goes for the Fire Punch and just barely misses out in the roll, but does get the burn. And once he got the burn, you just kind of know that Iron Head's going to do its thing eventually, as it pretty much does right here. He Iron Heads him again and knocks him out. So he brings in the Dragapult and goes right for the Dragon Darts here, as he Healing Wishes into the Mandibuzz, knowing that he could easily take any hit at +1 and probably just knock it out with Foul Play. unless he's Cobra, and even if he is Cobra, he might be able to take 2 hits. I don't really know exactly, but he reveals also to be heavy duty boots because he doesn't take any stealth rock damage. So here he goes into the Piloswine and gets foul played, and that does a decent chunk. So I'm thinking this thing really may have some attack investment because the Earthquake did a pretty good chunk to the Kyurem, and now foul play did a pretty good chunk to it. So he actually reveals here to be the Curse, which is a pretty dangerous and sneaky Piloswine set because it's a naturally insanely bulky Pokemon combined with Eviolite, and just ground ice offensive coverage, as we've seen with Mamoswine, is just insane. So all of a sudden, now it looks like he could potentially have a chance in this game because at +1 defense, he probably doesn't go down to a Zeraora's close combat. And this Venusaur has to be careful because if it gets too whittled, then it could potentially get picked off by Ice Shard. So here he sends in Venusaur. He's probably not in range of a +1 Ice Shard as he goes for the Giga Drain, and he actually gains a little bit more than he takes from the Life Orb damage. But here Nick makes the aggressive play, going hard into Piloswine, like really hoping that he would go into his Mana Buzz. But I guess K-Crick felt that if he just stayed into either weaken or knock out the Dragapult, he could handle it, and as long as the Piloswine isn't at +1 attack and defense, he can handle it with his last 2 Pokemon, namely probably Zeraora being able to knock it out with something like a close combat. So Nick makes the aggressive play, but it doesn't work out too well, as here he's just going to switch back into the Dragapult, which is now going to be in range of an Earth Power, but he goes for Sucker Punch, getting a little bit of extra chip on it, as here he brings in the Piloswine. He does reveal to have the Ice Shard, but he's not going to be able to do much more, as the Zeraora is just going to be able to close combat, and it does reveal to be Life Orb. So I would imagine with the +1 defense at being at like 63%, he probably would have been able to take that hit, which would have put him in a pretty dangerous position. It would have at least probably lowered the differential to a 1-0 instead of a 2-0. But yeah, that game turned out to be closer than I expected because it looked like K-Crick was in just such a commanding position, and he never lost control. Don't get me wrong, he never lost control. He definitely kept control of that match, but the Cursed Piloswine did look like it almost had a chance to turn things around a little bit. So that was a cool set on Nick's end, and he preserved it pretty well and showed how much of a threat it could be. But unfortunately, he just let himself get way too behind earlier on in the match. I think staying in on the Kyurem with his Obstagoon turn 1, and then trying to bait his Venusaur, maybe trying to lure him into thinking he was Akaberry when he already attacked his Torkoal, probably revealing that he was a Choice Band set, was just not the right play in my opinion, as it definitely went a long way. As you can see how much work the Venusaur put in. Had he bullet punched it there, it probably wouldn't have even been able to come in on rocks again after taking that Life Orb hit from the Weather Ball. So hopefully Nick learns from that going forward, as other than that, he played the game pretty well and his prep was cool. But those 2 plays, I think, really hurt him. And K-Crick is just, more than good enough to take advantage of any mistakes people make. I know better than anyone else. So he moves on to 3-0, just looking really strong so far, which is awesome. So now, with that being said, we will move on to our third game of the highlights, which I actually do think was quite the exciting game. It actually really came down to the wire, as both of these guys, I think, played and prepped pretty well. And yeah, we'll get right into it, as we have Kaz over here, who joins us once again. He actually was in the highlights last week against Aki. And now on the other side, we have Prime Dorkman, otherwise known as Ice. And Ice is coming in at 0-2, Kaz at 1-1. I don't know if it's Kaz or Kaz. So that's the thing. I used to say Aki, but it's actually Aki. And now I don't know how Kaz pronounces it, because most people outside of New York would probably say Kaz, but I'm from New York. I'm an Italian stallion, so I say Kaz. Anyway, both these guys have pretty solid looking teams. Ice had most of his team drafted by Ben, but like I said about Rotom Heat before, probably the best Rotom form. Weavile is really nice again now that it has knockoff back. Also has the triple axle, which is a really strong ice move. And what else? Heavy duty boots does allow it to not get whittled down as easily by Stealth Rock, and also gives it more like setup opportunities, because SD Weavile has never really been the most common Weavile set, because usually it just puts on a lot of pressure on most teams due to its like just natural good offensive stab and coverage. So you don't really need to waste time or take the risk trying to set up, but because of the boots, it does give it more opportunities. So that is pretty cool for it. Skarmory, of course, is always going to be pretty solid. Goodra is another Pokemon that, if used well, could be pretty solid. Not the biggest fan of it, but I do think that it is slept on sometimes. And then he's got the Urshifu Rapid Strike, which is the water fighting type one, which I do think the dark one is better, but I still think the water one is, very good. And lastly, he's got Reuniclus, which is just an amazing Pokemon. It's always been amazing, and it's even better now because of the fact that Pursuit has been removed. Well, I guess everything getting Darkest Lariat, though, does kind of hurt it, because it always was like a really scary threat, being able to set up in many different ways, including things like Acid Armor, which just made it extremely hard to take down even for physical dark types. But the Darkest Lariat does hurt it quite a bit. So I don't know, actually. It might turn out that Reuniclus isn't quite as good as it used to be. Who knows? But so far it's been a staple in the Sword and Shield meta, even in OU. So we'll see. But anyway, going to Kaz's team, I really like his team. Even though it's not like just like the strongest superstars, like right from the top down, where you have like your Kyurem Black or your Cinderace. His first pick was Aegislash, but Aegislash is a really solid Pokemon. And then he's got Broken Slowbro, which, like I said, Teleport is just absurd. He's also got Porygon 2, which is an amazing user of Teleport because it's just so damn fat and is actually not nearly as passive as you would expect for a Pokemon of the amount of bulk it possesses, but because it has both the download ability and good coverage and a solid special attack stat, it is not that passive. So having Teleport, giving it momentum now, which is like the one thing it always really lacked, makes it a lot better in my opinion. Like I said, Mienshao I think is better now too. The Rotom forms in general have been buffed, and then even Crocodile, it does lose Pursuit, but it gets things like Close Combat, which is really nice for it. So should be an interesting match. Both really solid players, so we'll get right into it. Kaz is going to lead with his Porygon 2 and switch right out on the Urshifu. Whenever you see just a blank square here, it's Urshifu because they don't have the sprites for it yet. So he U-turns out on this Slowbro. That did a lot of damage, so I'm probably going to guess that he's Choice Band on the Urshifu here. So he brings in his Weavile as he's able to go right for the knockoff here, but Kaz has the Cobra Berry and goes right for the Body Press. So I don't know. I don't think Ice knew that Slowbro got Body Press, because I know after the game he was saying that was stupid that he let this happen. But yeah, Body Press is one of those moves where in the beginning that always affected me too. When I was first getting into Sword and Shield, I was just like, everything gets Body Press now, and I'm too lazy to look it up for all of the Pokemon. But one rule of thumb is that if the Pokemon looks like it can learn Body Press, which means it's like a thick boy, then it probably gets Body Press. So he Body Presses the Weavile, takes it out, which when you look at Kaz's team, that's really, really nice, because knockoff, removing Porygon's potential Violite, which is the most likely item on it, is really nice. If he outspeeds the Mienshao, then he could either OHKO it or just do a ton of damage to it. And then the rest of his Pokemon, he either OHKOs or hits super effectively with a stab. So that was a really big loss for Ice right now. So good play for Kaz, good prep, as here he's going to switch out, as the Urshifu actually goes for Liquidation. And I was actually curious. I wonder if Ice went with Liquidation purposely, because the Rapid Strike attack can be like checked by Rocky Helmet. For example, like let's say he wanted to go for the Rapid. I can't remember what it's called. There's Wicked Blow and then the Water one, which it hits 3 times. So if he were to go for that into something like Slowbro, which resists it, then he'd take 3 Rocky Helmets in a row. So I don't know if that was intentional or if he just, because it's a new Pokemon, didn't realize that he's got a way better water move. Not sure, but either way, it probably works in a lot of Water Urshifu matches, because everyone's just going to slap Rocky Helmet on their like best water resist. So he gets the defense drop on that Porygon, which is unfortunate. I don't think that would have knocked it out, but either way, he probably just didn't have a move that would hit it hard enough to justify staying in. So he switches into Aegislash, which, does suck for Kaz as he takes a lot of damage in the process. As here he's going to pivot back into the Slowbro, which also gets his defense lowered, but will not go down to the next hit. That liquidation did do a really low amount, but it would have done around like 38 to 40 probably had he not been resisted. So it could be choice banned. I'm not 100% sure, but he hasn't switched up moves, so I do think there's a decent chance that it is choice banned, as he's going to teleport and bring in his Porygon, and Ice goes hard into his Skarmory, as he does get crit by that Thunderbolt, but is able to live and get up a Spike. And now he curses with his Goodra as he takes a Toxic from the Porygon too, and he's probably got the rest here. So I was kind of surprised that he didn't just click Dragon Tail here, because he's got no Dragon immunities on. I don't know if he has a Fairy type on his team. I think he does, but certainly not in the 6 that he's brought here. So it's kind of obvious when he brings in the Rotom that he's probably going to trick, but Ice does just decide to go for another Curse, which I don't think was the best play here. Had he Dragon Tail there, he probably would have got a decent amount of damage off on this and probably been able to have gone for another one, because Goodra would have been so bulky at that point. But still, he decides to preserve the Goodra and bring in his Rotom Heat as Kaz's Rotom defogs away that Spike. And now he's able to Toxic the incoming Porygon and Volt Switch out on it, getting a crit, which is annoying. But he actually confides into the incoming Urshifu, which obviously isn't affected, and is able to just U-turn out and knock it out. So brings in the Skarm, and the Rotom cut is going to go for the Volt Switch. Now brings in the Aegislash, as he's able to go right for the Shadow Ball here. It doesn't do too much because Goodra's special defense is insane, but he knows that the Goodra's only attack is probably going to be Dragon Tail, because a lot of Curse, Rest Talk Goodras bring Mono Dragon Tail as their offensive option. So he's able to take a Dragon Tail even in his Blade form and bring in the Mienshao. Just click the knockoff here and knocking out the Goodra, but he does take Gooey ability in the process, lowering his speed, allowing the Urshifu to come in and outspeed it. That U-turn did a ton to Rotom. I really do think that is a choice banded set. As here he's going to Volt Switch out on the Reuniclus, bringing in the Aegislash, and Ice just clicks the Shadow Ball there and knocks out the Aegislash. Just here comes the Crocodile, as Ice is going to pivot into his Skarmory, sacking that off, bringing in the Urshifu, which is just going to claim a kill. Clicks the U-turn and goes into the Rotom, which is looking really nice right now. Gets knocked off, which is the boots, but the Overheat is going to do a really, really nice chunk to this Crook. Kaz is going to knock off again. I'm wondering if this is some kind of choice Crook, just because how he's... Nope, never mind. That's right, I remember he did go for the rocks there. Goes for the rocks on this Rotom, as he does just Overheat again, as he was probably out of range of the knockoff, and is able to knock him out. As here he's going to Toxic the Slowbro, as the Slowbro does just go for the Teleport, bringing in the Mienshao, and now, interestingly enough, he brings in his Urshifu here, as I guess the Urshifu is out of range of any Mienshao hits, because Urshifu has really solid HP and physical defense. So something like Life Orb, Close Combat, or High Jump Kick probably aren't enough to knock out the Urshifu. And I think this Mienshao has already been revealed to be Regenerator, because he's attacked before and come back in at full health again. So he brings in the Slowbro. Things are looking pretty good for Ice, as here he goes right for the Close Combat, and the Slowbro takes that pretty easily. As here he brings in the Reuniclus on the Slowbro here, as he's just going to go for the Recover, as Kaz teleports into the Slowbro and Baton passes right back into it with Mienshao, as he goes for the Scald here, and the Shadow Ball is able to knock it out. So now here I'm thinking this game is over, like Ice has got it in the bag. I would imagine that Reuniclus could take a knockoff from this range. Reuniclus is really bulky, and it turns out the Reuniclus lives out 1% and knocks him out with the Psychic. But then you'd probably think that, like, oh, the Urshifu would have been able to live. And I know it just said dark when I scrolled over it, but it's not dark. That's just like a showdown glitch. It was the water one. I guess you would just think that Urshifu would easily be able to take a Close Combat or even a High Jump Kick from a Regenerator Mienshao at like 88 or 87.5%. but apparently he actually had Grass Knot on his Mian Chao as well. That was his last move. I guess he was baton pass knockoff, some fighting move, and Grass Knot, which he said was guaranteed to knock out the Urshifu. So I don't know what the role was on the Reuniclus. I genuinely have no idea. Maybe Kaz knows better due to playing the game and maybe getting some hits off on the Reuniclus, but I thought for sure Reuni's going to eat this up. But the fact that he lived it on one, I don't know what the role was, but that made it a really close game because I also don't know the role with the Grass Knot, but Urshifu's special defense that is really low. So a full-powered Grass Knot boosted by Life Orb, I could see that potentially knocking out the Urshifu from 87.5%. So that was a really, really close game. Came right down to the wire. Like I said, I don't know the role, but it basically all hinged on that one roll. So unfortunate for Kaz. He played well. He prepped well. I think Ice did as well. He made some mistakes, though, like I said, with the Gudra as well as the Weavile. I don't know if the Weavile was just like a memory lapse, not knowing that Slowbro got body press, something like that, or if he like just genuinely decided to take the risk, thinking that he'd be safe and that he might not be Cobra or whatever it may be. But either way, that's something that you have to keep in mind when playing Sword and Shield, is like that's one of the new mechanics where it's like, oh, I got to keep track for body press, because like Iron Defense plus body press is almost like Swords Dance. It's crazy. Like you boost your defense, making yourself more bulky, able to take hits better, and you still hit way harder with body press, which is pretty insane. So that's definitely something to try to keep your eye on when you're preparing in Sword and Shield, because you don't want to get swept by random body press Pokemon, because it happens. Like I've seen it. And that was something I definitely had to learn the hard way, was how just a lot of really solid defensive Pokemon can carry body press, and you just switch in one of your offensive Pokemon that normally could take one of their stab moves pretty easily, and they get body press for over half their HP. So definitely something to keep an eye out for. But yeah, that was a great game. That was a really exciting one to watch. And Ice was able to pick up his first win on the season, which I know he's really happy about, against a really good player in Kaz. So unfortunate for Kaz, like I said. But I'm confident that he'll bounce back. And yeah, I'm excited to see how the next cycle of games go now that we are starting back in Oras again for week 4. I'm really excited for this week. Oras was a lot of fun week 1. I know we had a lot of people hyped to play it, so hopefully that hype is still there. And yeah, after 3 weeks, things have been going really well in UDL so far. I'm very grateful to everyone in the league for making it a great experience, and I hope it continues that way. So hope you enjoyed the video. Definitely let me know what you guys think in the comments. And with that being said, hope you all had a great weekend, and hope you all continue to have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one later.